So let's go take a look at, where is my, there we go. Okay, back in our code, we're going to go to index.ejs, and here we have an unordered list. We have a class for list group, and I don't think we're styling this. Let me double check my style. We're not. Okay, so I'm going to change this to an ID. So now that it's an ID, we'll set the ID equal to to-do list. So this is the unordered list that has all of our to-do items, and it'll now be easily selectable with our jQuery. So we can copy this ID we just created, go into our Ajax file, and we can use the $ hash to-do list, and now we've selected this unordered list, and we want to append a new list item to the end of it. So we'll do a dot append, and now what comes inside of the append is a string version of the HTML markup that we need to be able to add this new list item to the page. So basically anything we put inside of here is going to be appended to this unordered list. So what we'll do here is we'll open this up, and we're going to use some new syntax. Instead of putting single quotes or double quotes, we will use a string with 2 backticks, and what that allows us to do is use multiple lines, so it makes it easier to read when we're formatting our markup here. So that's some newer syntax with the newest version of JavaScript. And now what we need to do is go back into the index.ejs file, and this list item that's inside of this loop right here, this is the list item, this is the markup that we're going to use to append a new list item to the unordered list. Okay, so we're going to copy all of this. It's this list item inside of this loop here, and we'll go back to our Ajax and we'll just paste this in. Okay, so the only problem here is we have this EJS syntax, which if we just append it to the DOM like this, it's not going to be compiled the way that the regular EJS syntax is compiled when it's sent from a server. So what we can do here is use what's called string interpolation to pass in some variable values from our response from the server. Okay, so the way you do this is you use a $ and then curly brackets, and then inside of it you can use variables. So we have data. This is the data that we're getting back from the request to the server, and now we can call data.text, and this will give us the text value from that object that we saw earlier. So when we were here, there's text right here, and we can also access the ID with _ID. Okay, so back in our code, we're replacing the EJS for the to-do.text. Now we're putting in the data.text, and then there's a couple other places that we need to replace. Here is the to-do ID, so we're going to paste this in here and just change text to _ID, and then we can copy that because there's at least one other place right here. Okay, so these are just the URLs for the action and for the anchor tag, for the edit button, and for the to-dos. And we're going to change this a little bit later on, I think, but for now this should be fine. So you can save all this, and we'll go back over here. We'll let this run through. Nothing's going to happen. We'll just close this out, and we will refresh. Okay, so there's that hello world that came back from the server when we refreshed, but at this point we're going to add a new item. So we'll just put new item, and when we click create item, if everything works, it will appear right here. So create item, and there it is. Awesome. So that is how we add a new item to the DOM after we've sent a Ajax request in the form of a post request to the API or to our server, and whenever we get a response from the server, we can just use that data to build up some HTML markup in our JavaScript file and append it to the DOM using jQuery. So now what we want to do is whenever we've submitted a new item, this form still has the value new item inside the input. If we wanted to add a new item, we'd have to go in here and we'd have to select that and remove it. So what we're going to do as one last step is remove this. We're just going to make it blank again. So we'll go back to our code here, pull that up, and inside of here, right after this dot append method is done being called, we can use jQuery and select this, or we can't select this because now that we're inside this callback here, this no longer references the original form. So what we need to do is just use the ID for the form. So we'll say hash new to do form, and then we'll do a dot find, and then we just need to pass in the class for that input, which in this case from Bootstrap is form control. And then once you have the element selected, then you can actually change the value of it by using .val, and we'll just pass in an empty string, and that will clear it out. So we'll save this and go back. We'll close this out, refresh the whole thing. Okay, so it's empty. That's because we refreshed the page. If we enter in a new item, so another new item, we click create. Now we have another new item, and you can see that the value for the input is now empty. So one last note before we go. I'm noticing that the styling of the unordered list has changed a little bit, and what I realized is that back whenever we were in the code, so we'll go back over to our code real quick, whenever we removed the class from the unordered list, that was actually a Bootstrap class, so we did need that. So we'll say class, and we'll add it back in. I believe it was list group. And so we have class of list group, that's for Bootstrap, and then ID of to-do list. And if that works properly, we'll go ahead and save this, go back over to our browser and refresh, and we should expect this to appear how it was. Okay, so that's how it was originally. Now everything lines up properly, and we can add another item, make another tutorial video, create item, and there it is. Okay, so that's it for this lecture, and in the next couple videos we'll go over how to set up the edit and the delete with Ajax.